decided stoop from the muzzle. The skull must be comparatively rounded and well developed, with plenty of room for brain power. The eyes must be full but not gozzled. The general expression must be one of intelligence and gentleness. The spaniel that exhibits these points is encouraged and bred from. The spaniel who persists in perpetuating top knots and light noses is cut off from the privileges and emoluments of his kind. About the end of the 18th century, a family of the spaniel breed was living near Reading in the house of a certain Dr. Mitford. That gentleman's eyes were light, his ears were curled, his head exhibited the fatal top-knot. He was utterly selfish, recklessly extravagant, and addicted to gambling. He wasted his own fortune, his wife's fortune, and his daughter's earnings. But 2 points he had in his favour: great personal beauty and a genuine devotion to dogs. And he had in his possession several generations of spaniels, from whom Flush sprang. All researchers have failed to fix with any certainty the exact year of Flush's birth, let alone the month or the day, but it is likely that he was born sometime early in the year 1842. And it is to poetry that we have to trust for our most detailed description of Flush himself as a young dog. He was that particular shade of dark brown which in sunshine flashes all over into gold. His eyes were startled eyes of hazel bland, his ears were tasselled, his slender feet were canopied in fringes, and his tail was broad. Making allowance for the exigencies of rhyme and the inaccuracies of poetic diction, there is nothing here but what would meet with the approval of the Spaniel Club. We cannot doubt that Flush was a pure-bred cocker of the red variety, marked by all the characteristic excellencies of his kind. The first months of his life were passed at 3 Mile Cross, a working man's cottage near Reading, since the Mitfords had fallen on evil days. Karen Happock was the only servant. The most important article of furniture seems to have been a large table, the most important room a large greenhouse. Flush enjoyed with all the vivacity of his temperament most of the pleasures and some of the licenses natural to his youth and sex. Miss Mitford, it is true, was much confined to the cottage. She had to read aloud to her father hour after hour, then to play cribbage, then, when at last he slumbered, to write and write and write at the table in the greenhouse in the attempt to pay their bills and settle their debts. Then at last the longed-for moment would come. She thrust her papers aside, clapped her hat on her head, took her umbrella, and set off for a walk across the fields with her dogs. Spaniels are by nature sympathetic. Flush, as his story proves, had an even excessive appreciation of human emotions. The sight of his dear mistress snuffing the fresh air, letting it ruffle her white hair and redden the natural freshness of her face, excited him to gambols whose wildness was half sympathy with her own delight. As she strode through the long grass, so he leapt hither and thither, parting its green curtain. The cool globes of dew or rain broke in showers of iridescent spray about his nose. The earth, here hard, here soft, here hot, here cold, stung, teased, and tickled the soft pads of his feet. Then what a variety of smells, interwoven in subtlest combination, thrilled his nostrils. Strong smells of earth, sweet smells of flowers, nameless smells of leaf and bramble, sour smells as they crossed the road, pungent smells as they entered the bean fields. But suddenly down the wind came tearing a smell, sharper, stronger, more lacerating than any, a smell that ripped across his brain, stirring 1,000 instincts, releasing 1,000,000 memories. The smell of hair, the smell of fox. Off he flashed like a fish drawn in a rush through water, further and further. He forgot his mistress, he forgot all humankind. He heard dark men cry, "Span! Span!" He heard whips crack. He raced, he rushed. At last he stopped, bewildered. The incantation faded. Very slowly, wagging his tail sheepishly, he trotted back across the fields to where Miss Mitford stood shouting, "Flush! Flush! Flush!" and waving her umbrella.